What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and the backlash has already begun to the new Twitter CEO. Not just some spicy old tweets he had from 10 years ago, but some of his other little interviews that he's chosen to do, and the media is picking it up. Does Twitter have a problem? Well, I suppose the answer would be no, because nothing he said would enrage the far left, but it's interesting. It's an interesting time to remind people about alt tech. I have a Getter account. I have a Gab account. I have a BitChute account. I have a Minds account. I'll link them all in the, well, they're all linked in the description in my link tree. And, regardless of how you feel about alt tech, you don't have to use them all. Obviously, that's a major commitment. But, pick one and sign up for it and try to make yourself known there. You'd be surprised maybe just how quickly you can actually get a voice on some of these other platforms when you're not being immensely suppressed by other types of media. You have this article. New CEO says Twitter is not bound by the First Amendment. Now, I talked about this a little bit earlier in my first video. Jack Dorsey, this is via Libby Evans, wonderful, wonderful lady. Got to spend some time with her in Montana. Very nice, very smart. Jack Dorsey announced on Monday he would be stepping down from his post as the CEO of Twitter, a company founded in 2006, and will be replaced by Chief Technical Officer Parag. While Dorsey has consistently come under criticism from pundits and politicians alike for appearing to censor and suppress stories in an attempt to uphold a left-leaning narrative, this new guy is on record opposing free speech initiatives on the social media platform. Now, look, I get that social media platforms, I always, no matter what, even there are members of my audience that are like, I'll get an angry email every once in a while, like, bro, how come you censor yourself on YouTube? That's so stupid and lame. I don't disagree with you. That's why I don't fight it. But at the same time, like, I'm not doing everything I can. I have a Minds account, I'm Getter, I have BitChute. If the expectation is that I have to stop supporting my family in order to, to fight on that hill, well, I can't do that. And really hardly anyone can. But I hope one day, before I leave all of this behind, well, actually, probably once most people move on beyond me, is that I can, maybe make a living on BitChute or Odyssey or one of these other platforms and not have to have YouTube. But right now, it's just the reality. And for many, that's the reality for a service like Twitter. It's still the quickest way to get news on breaking events. Every time something is, going on that's developing in every few seconds, Twitter is still the best place to get that information, like it or not. Until such a point where Getter or Minds or Parler or one of these other options gets their stuff in a group, it's going to continue to be that way. During a 2020 interview, the new CEO spoke to MIT's MTech podcast about misinformation, which is defined as intentionally false or misleading information shared in an attempt to push a specific narrative. Now, I actually agree that misinformation, by that definition, is a bad thing. The problem is, it's not how that term is used. Oftentimes, the term misinformation is simply information that is inconvenient to our truth or to what we want you to believe. And that's where I have such a problem with terms like misinformation and hate speech or, things of this nature. I think we could all agree that, information of the medical variety that is harmful, I don't have any problem with it being flagged. The problem is what YouTube classifies as that is such a wide berth beyond what is actually misinformation. It's something I have to stand against until they can actually enforce it correctly or prove to me that they don't have political reasons for doing it. So now he told Gideon Litchfield, Tech Review's editor-in-chief, that the First Amendment was not something Twitter was bound by. You're caught in a bit of a hard place, as somebody in the audience is also pointing out that you're trying to combat misinformation, Litchfield asked. You also want to protect free speech as a core value, and also in the U.S. as a First Amendment. How do you balance the two? Quote, our role, he said, is not to be bound by the First Amendment, but our role is to serve a healthy public conversation, and our moves are reflective of things that we believe lead to a healthier public conversation. This is very concerning doublespeak here. The reality is, you're right. As a corporation, you are not bound to the First Amendment. However, as a corporation that gets government protections via Section 230, I would argue that you are bound to it, that you are bound to not choosing one political side or the other to display that opinion or narrative. That's exactly what, in my opinion, Twitter does and has done, and is only going to get far, far worse under this new guy. He says, quote, "The kinds of things that we do about this focus less on thinking about free speech, but thinking about how times have changed," he said. "One of the changes today that we see is speech is easy on the internet. Most people can speak. Where our role is particularly emphasized is who can be heard," shadow bans. "The scarce commodity today is attention. There's a lot of content out there, a lot of tweets out there. Not all of it gets attention. Some subset of it gets attention." So what it really sounds like here is we're talking about, shadow bans and other ways to control speech algorithmically, by outright bans. Yes, it continues. "And so increasingly our role is moving towards how we recommend content. And that sort of is a struggle that we're working through in terms of how we make sure these recommendation systems that we're building, how we direct people's attention, is leading to healthy public conversation that's most participatory." I mean, I don't know about you, but that just sounds like a bunch of common gobbledygook. I mean, what he's really saying is, like, we want to make sure that only the correct voices are amplified on our platform, and that the voices we amplify are the ones saying the things we agree with. It's particularly frustrating because as a user of social media, like many of you are, if you're watching this video, wherever you're watching it, just look at how we subscribe to things. I subscribe to a channel on YouTube because I want to get the videos, ideally. I follow people on Twitter because I want to see their tweets. Yes, I know dealing with promoted tweets or advertisements are, just part of the game, and that's fine. Hey, it's what pays my bills. But I would like to see what I've volunteered and said I wanted to see. We see this with YouTube. I subscribe to a channel. After a little while, you don't get the notifications. So now they want you to click the bell. Okay, so you click the bell. Then after a while, they want you to go back and double click the bell and say you want every video, not just every other video or something like that. This is what they mean by like algorithmically choosing what voices they want you to see. There's a reason you see, only one side of the political aisle promoted on YouTube. It's not because that's only what people are interested in. It's what their algorithm promotes. And that's exactly what we've known about Twitter forever and ever. And again, I think it's dumb. It wouldn't be how I would run my business, but I can't have a legitimate problem with it if they don't have Section 230 protection. So if you want to run your platform and discriminate against whomever you wish, fine. That's your bad business approach, in my opinion. But when you're getting protection from my government, from lawsuits, well, now I'm a little more interested. Of course, we see here this old tweet coming up and Maya Cathell coming in and absolutely ratioing. I don't know who that is, but it's pretty funny. The new Twitter CEO doesn't know how to scrub his own old tweets. Further evidence of his bias surfaced Monday when he donated to the ACLU so it could sue former President Donald Trump, according to journalist Andy No. Quote, "As an immigrant, I've always believed this country is better than this," he tweeted after announcing his $1,000 donation. "I just donated $2,000 to sue Trump." Now, it's not necessarily, everyone has their own political opinions, but I don't know why anyone thought that this dude was going to be any different. Twitter came under criticism during the 2020 election season for suppressing stories that did not fall within the Democratic Party narratives. These included suppressing stories about the infamous laptop, which implicated then candidate Joe Biden in all sorts of terrible things, upping the Russia garbage, silenced conservatives like Trump and his supporters for essentially wrong think on the origins of the coup, which we now know they were incorrect about. I don't think Twitter has a problem necessarily with this guy, but all this does and all this should do is remind you that you need to be using alt tech. At least dedicate some time to it. New Twitter CEO thinks free speech is dated, claims misinformation, not about what's true and false. I didn't think that this guy would be any better than Jack Dorsey. In fact, Jack Dorsey is going to look like a free speech absolutist up to this guy. Embrace your alt tech, boys and girls. I know it isn't aesthetically the easiest. Pick one and commit to it. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.